Well, Russia is stepping up its attacks on Ukraine, prompting a meeting this morning of G7 leaders. CTV's chief international correspondent Paul Workman joins us live from Kyiv with the latest on that. Paul, thank you for being here. What can you tell us about what unfolded in this G7 meeting today?
Well, Volodymyr Zelenskyy went in with a shopping list, as he does with all of his meetings when he meets the Americans or the Canadians or whomever. He certainly wants hardware, first of all. The massive attacks yesterday have shown Ukraine once again that they need a much better air defense system here. They need kind of a shield over their cities if they can possibly get it. They tried to get a no-fly zone enforced by NATO, and of course that was rejected. So now Zelenskyy certainly wants some better way to prevent or alleviate the kinds of attacks that really terrorized Ukrainian cities yesterday. That was on the menu, if you like. The G7 leaders came back essentially and said that they are offering Ukraine steadfast and undeterred support, was the phrase that they used, which is quite strong in terms of diplomatic language. We'll see if they cough up the amount of, or the kind of advanced weaponry that that Ukraine is now asking. And of course, there's a demand for more sanctions. That's almost at every meeting that Zelenskyy goes to, asking for sanctions from European leaders. That's really the gist of what we heard today. An emergency meeting. It was important enough for the G7 leaders to get together and actually meet the leader of Ukraine.
Paul, I apologize if I'm kind of confusing or sort of, you know, not necessarily connecting the dots properly here, but I also understood there was some talk about reassessing the look at the annexations of 4 parts of Ukraine that Russia did just a short time ago. What was the latest on that?
Well, it's my understanding, certainly from before, is that the Western nations were, you know, very much in favor, very much in unity, condemning the kinds of annexations that Russia was now trying to pull off, and that position hasn't changed. It hasn't changed from Crimea when it was annexed. The West believes that was an illegal act on Russia's part, just as it's an illegal act for Russia to now try to take these 4 regions in eastern Ukraine. Regions, Nick, as you know, that really aren't very steady at the moment. Russia doesn't even, in fact, know what the borders would be of these particular areas that they now claim to be a part of the motherland. And until that's settled, it seems pretty crazy or a pretty unusual idea that Russia would say, okay, we have this land, it is ours, when the Ukrainian army is moving through it and seizing territory, Nick.
And you know, we talked earlier, Paul, and you discussed the idea that, you know, Russia is sort of attacking almost from a strength of weakness. You know, the last several weeks of this war, you know, they have certainly lost ground that they thought they'd ceded or thought they'd taken over. The Ukrainians were putting up incredible resistance here. I wonder if there has been more today, you know, in terms, or this evening, now that night has fallen in Kyiv or across Ukraine, more attacks from Russia as they try to sort of reassert themselves in this war.
There hasn't often been nighttime attacks here. Mostly it's in the morning. This morning, again, air raid sirens went off at about 8 o'clock. Nothing in terms of the kind of extensive assault and missile launches that we saw yesterday, but there were some serious attacks today in Zaporizhia, in the southern part of the country, and in Lviv, a city that's largely escaped most of the bombing from the Russians. Their waterworks system and their power stations were hit today, the grid there. That, of course, is Russia's new intention. Vladimir Putin has made it very clear. It's no longer just about hitting military installations. It's about hitting establishments that would, you know, keep the civilian population warm over the winter, for example, and keep the lights on in their houses. It's been termed as sort of Russia now trying to terrorize the Ukrainian population into submission.
Okay, that's CTV's Paul Workman joining us live from Kyiv. Paul, appreciate this. Thanks so much.
Okay, thanks.